Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Today I've been challenged by Josh to just basically talk about some of the biggest changes, 10 ideally, though I'll probably talk about more. The biggest changes that we're going to experience going into Wilds from, say, World and Rise. There's a lot to talk about then, so let's just get into it. The starting point that I'm going to go for is the two weapons. How impactful is this truly going to be? There's a lot of ways you could think about something like this, like say me with dual blades and being a dual blades main. A lot of the time, at least in the other games, I'm playing with elemental dual blades. Based on the hunt that I'm about to go on, I will pull out the right element to do max damage to the hunt that I'm going to do. So a very simple concept for a variety of weapons then is to be bringing multiple elemental versions of the same weapon. So I have dual blades in my hands and I got dual blades in my bag to swap to, based on what I'm about to fight and what's going to deal more damage. Of course, you can still go to your tent and change your equipment though, so how relevant is that really going to be? You could just teleport and instantly swap anyway. Bigger changes and examples we've seen for this would be, say, with the hunting horn, and whether its song buffs are actually going to maintain in the full game when you swap weapon. So you pull out the hunting horn, you play the song, you get the buffs, then you swap to the real weapon you want to use for maximum output. This is a dangerous concept because if it is good, if it's that impactful, then everyone or a lot of people, the min-maxers for sure, are going to be doing that. And I'm not sure that's what they were imagining for the system. So how will this truly turn out? What's going to be quote-unquote optimal? What's going to be good sort of systems to run for these? I think multiple elements is definitely a given, and I do think the hunting horn thing's going to be very real if they don't address it. If you're wondering though, I've played the game myself, so I know how it works. To swap weapon, I would press right on the D-pad on a controller. This would have the seikret come running, and then I would immediately mount and then swap via the bag to the second weapon. So to swap gear, you need the seikret to come running over and yeah, actually allow you to swap. But it only takes half a second, there's not much of a delay, and you're able to choose what goes into your bag as sort of a primary and secondary weapon setup when you're choosing your equipment, like when you would change, say, your armor set, the same system. So we'll see how that turns out. Here's another big change. The village location and the mini village in the locales. When I jumped into the demo, I spawned in basically in this mini village. It's my understanding that there's going to be a quote mini village, at least one in each of the locales. Here I had my primary tent, right? Here there are NPCs out in the world with us, where say the blacksmith was there, and in theory I'd be able to go over and talk to her and maybe do some smithing while out in the locale instead of having to leave to the village. It's a pretty big concept really, because it's going to make the world a lot more seamless, and seamless is a big word they keep using. Imagine in other Monster Hunter games, you are in the village, you choose a quest, you load into the quest, you're now in a locale, you hunt the monster, the quest ends, you go back to the village, you go hand in the quest, you continue the story, you get the next quest, you go to a new locale, and so on and so on. Here in Wilds, it very much seems, as we're going to talk about with this questing system, it very much seems like you're going to be out in a locale. You're there to hunt this specific monster. Cool, you hunted the monster, now you go to the village that's like right next to you, like half a second TP away even. You're still in the same locale. You upgrade your weapon with the materials you've got. You talk to the handler here, and then you progress the quest, and you get the next monster or investigation, whatever, to do here. It's probably in the same locale. Or you defeat the monster, and as is changed in this game now, the end screen pops up as kind of an overlay on the right side of your screen. It doesn't even interrupt you. It doesn't pause you. Hell, the 60-second timer, you can instantly skip it. Finally. So maybe you're defeating a monster and you're like, there's a bunch of stuff I want to collect right there, but the quest is ending in 60 seconds. No, you have infinite time. So yes, that seamless nature of it, the village location being in the locales, is definitely going to be noticeable. But that's not to say that there isn't like an actual proper village you go to, and I imagine big story and relevant characters are going to be there. How that interacts with the world and how much we actually go there with this new seamless system that they're doing though, it is a big question. But we've seen nothing of it, so yeah, we don't know yet. So in regards to that questing system, obviously this is a big deal. You can start a quest by speaking with your handler, maybe at a board or whatever, in the other Monster Hunter games. In this one, it seems you can still do that. There should be a board in the mini village in the locale, and you can talk to your handler, I believe. However, as they've shown in the Gamescom live streams, you can also just open the map and see what kind of monsters are around, target them and start a quest on them. Or maybe it's not specifically that case. What you can do is look at this like seeming investigation style system they showed us, where we can see a bunch of monster names and star levels and then just choose one to hunt. And what's really interesting and very different here is the star level, the kind of associated difficulty of that monster. We saw one monster name, say just as an example, there's a balahara you could hunt and it's 4-star. But then there's also a balahara you can hunt and it's 5-star. It's literally the same monster in the same locale, but it has different star level of difficulty. You would assume that just means it's got a bigger health pool and maybe it deals more damage. So it sounds like they've changed the difficulty rating of monsters beyond just, oh, it's that monster, that's how hard it is. And it can kind of spawn with, I don't know, a bigger or smaller health pool or bigger damage output, then defined by its star level or difficulty level. So that sounds very different, and it does make me wonder, like, how are the investigation is going to work, or is that literally the investigation system now? So in regards to that questing system, the end screen, the monster difficulty stuff, lots of stuff is actually changing, and we're not going to know the true depth of it and how things have really changed until we get more time with the game. One thing that we definitely know about, and I'm not going to talk too long about, is the weather systems. In short, each of the locale is going to have a unique weather system that's going to occur. It would sim. Here in the desert region, we have the sand tide, which is associated with Raidao, the kind of lightning wyvern. Each locale is going to have an apex predator monster. Associated with that is its weather system, which takes up a space on the map. Instead of the whole map being, you know, oh, we're being affected by this weather, it's a specific place in the map that you're currently at, which means you could just leave it. You don't have to deal with the weather negatives or whatever. In the case of the sand tide, it's a lightning storm, so there's random lightning strikes. We've seen during some footage of the Gamescom live streams that a random strike hit a monster for, I think it was like 150 damage, which is not irrelevant. Just RNG struck the monster. But logically, it hasn't happened to me when I played. It could also hit us, I would imagine. So what other weather systems are we going to see? I'm already imagining like a snowstorm, but I don't like the idea of my visibility being limited. I've never enjoyed that personally. So I hope they do some cool stuff with the weather systems that aren't too negative on the gameplay. Overall though, it's a very impressive bit of tech. Speaking of the world though, we do have a massive new size to the locale. As was discussed, it's like the size of 2 Wildspar wastes, this locale we're on. But beyond just, say, the flat space, the depth and 3D nature of it is very vertical. Obviously, they went really hard on the design of verticality with that in mind, and the secret areas are ways that you can get around. I believe it was near the oasis that we've seen, where one of the developers actually ran into a surprise hidden cave there, and then they were under the earth. When we're in the kind of sandy desert dune area, those dunes are very vertical. They go very high, to the point where you can be above the monster you're fighting, maybe use it as a jump attack or a slide attack even. We've seen lots of hidden paths and so on, and recently we had a little podcast chat style thing with 2 of the community managers, Jono and Joe, and Jono was telling me that when they were doing the live stream, he had no idea about this underwater swimming thing or that secret area. And suddenly they were just there and he was having to clarify, this doesn't mean underwater combat, but it does mean that there are areas that you can get to that say your seikret cannot follow, such as this underwater swimming section, just to get to a secret area where, hey, they were able to set up a camp. So it's not just that the locale is big for the sake of being big, but what it's doing is increasing their potential to create hidden or interesting areas. For example, with this locale, we've got the big desert area with the high vertical dunes. We've got a grassy area where there's actually life, little alcoves where, you know, some of the monsters make their nests. We've seen some really cool cave systems and areas we've just not seen them go, and there's no way they fully explored all of this on stream. So while the map is definitely bigger, I want to acknowledge the depth. When I would open up the map and look at it, God, the icons and the routes and the pathways. But what's really nice about the new map we have, that new mini-map or the map system you open up, is how it allows you to move the camera and see that vertical nature and get a better look at, oh, that's where the cave is. That's where that pathway is. It's really helpful. So big change there. Another big change is in regards to the nest though, as I just mentioned. The new Apex Monster Nest seems to be a mechanic that's going to be hopefully across the board for all of the Apex monsters. We do not know about the Scarlet Forest Apex exactly, but you know, Josh and I think a lot of us are thinking that spider we've been shown, we're talking about Lala barina, might just be that Apex monster. And when we look at that incredible red nest, it does seem like it. Because if you want to look at Raidao's monster nest, for example, in this case, it's got all of its like crystalline growth all over the floor and the walls. Raidao generates that kind of crystalline armor on itself. And I guess the idea is that it harnesses the lightning, making it more of a threat. We see that in the nest though, as some of its lightning style attacks kind of reflect and expand out in bigger ways because of all that crystal everywhere. Basically, when you get to the nest, suddenly the monster is even more dangerous than ever before because of the environment that you're in. You're on its turf, and that now has a very relevant mechanical impact. So, based on what we've seen with the spider and then this lightning wyvern, I am imagining that each of them is going to get a unique monster nest for the Apex monsters, which is a logical assumption, but don't take it as fact. That's just what I'm expecting. Now, one big thing in regards to massive changes for me, and something I'm really excited about, especially off the back of Rise, which was very gamey, is the return to that more world style where animal and monster behavior is so much more in depth that it feels like a living, breathing world. And they have done a lot in regards to this. Now, we've seen examples of, say, small monsters not always attacking us every time, but actually attacking the big monsters that you're hunting whenever they get a chance. So if you were to trap a monster or knock it down, if there's small monsters nearby, they'll actually get in there, and maybe they won't do the best DPS, but more damage is damage. This is how they should act, so that's nice to see. But it goes beyond that. I heard from Jono a little story about when they were doing some stream thing, that one endemic life attacked another. I believe he was talking about the gaijos, the like new crocodiles that live by the water, and the bird that everyone was getting confused as a baby pukei. He was telling us that basically they'd stopped to look at one of these birds for a moment just to sort of show it, and then suddenly one of these crocodile gaijos just came out of nowhere and grabbed it and dragged it into the water. As horrible as that is, that's, you know, nature. And those kind of interactions are really exciting because endemic life interacting with each other is something new and something that's going to add a lot of life to the world when you're just in it and looking around. What we normally see is just like endemic life doing its thing, and we're going to see that again. But again, them interacting with each other is a very exciting concept because a lot of stuff could happen. And that will be shown best with the seasonal changes, because as the world evolves and you get to different points in the timeline, the seasons change. And that affects the locales. Not just the visuals of it, which is going to be interesting, but what's there? What kind of monsters? What kind of creatures? How are they acting? Where are you going to find them? Just like real life and real nature. And that's to say nothing of like the herds and hordes mechanic that we've seen. So the behavior of the monsters and the animals in this world are going to be very different. And it feels just, yeah, so much more real. It's great. Now, one animal we should talk about is probably the seikret, in regards to the comparisons made to the palamute. I'm really glad to have a mount back coming off the back of Rise and the bigger world, bigger map that they introduced. And the way that it works surprised me because there's kind of two ways you control it. There's manual and automatic. Automatic is going to follow whatever your current objective is. So if you're on a main quest, it's just going to go to whatever that objective is. Maybe it's a location, maybe it's an item to go pick up, maybe it's a specific monster. Or you could go ahead and pull out your map and place a waypoint or a marker yourself. That will be then your main target. And that's where the seikret will automatically guide itself to. You'll be able to see the path it's going to take because you've also got the green scout flyers leading the way, and the seikret is basically following those. However, when you're in manual, you can go in whatever direction, however you want, of course, but it's that automatic system that's really cool because while it's automatically running to the location, you can still control the speeds that it's going, whether you want to speed it up or slow it down. But also, you can, of course, sharpen your gear. You can do crafting. You can open up the map and have a look at that, set new targets. You're able to do a load of things while the seikret is running to the target, allowing you to min-max your efficiency pretty well. The thing is, while you're in manual mode or automatic, the seikret just kind of runs forward, reminding me of, say, the Zelda games where the horse runs forward and you just control the direction it's going. When you're in manual mode, it just runs forward. You don't have to press forward on a stick to make it go. It just goes, and all you do is control the speed and the direction that it's going. It will also automatically clamber and climb over terrain that's relevant that it can. And when you're in the air, I believe it's R2, you can pull out its wings to glide. So there's a lot going on there beyond the palamute. Even though we've lost the comical palamute drifting, yeah, there's a lot of cool features about the seikret. Now, one thing I also want to mention is the portable tents, because setting your own teleport locations, your own camp locations in a locale is quite the feature. But it is not infinite, it is not completely freeform. There are areas that'll allow you to place your tent, and there are plenty of areas where they just won't. So the devs have assigned general areas where a tent could go, which is a lot nicer than having to find the hidden campsite on the locale, and that's where it is, and that's just it. Especially with the bigger maps that we're actually going to be on, we want to be able to set our specific teleport locations for those camps more manually, and I think that's nice. Though you got to be wary because yes, they are destructible. If you place one where monsters just path, that's probably going to be an issue, but how much of an issue is it truly going to be? We saw an example of Ryozo on the Gamescom livestream intentionally destroy one of these portable tents. The tent was down, right? And then he used a lure on the monster and then intentionally dragged it next to the tent, then entered the tent and it destroyed the tent. Would it have even hit the tent if he hadn't had a lure on forcing it over there? And he even needed to enter the tent for it to actually hit the tent. So how much you have to worry about this, I am unsure about. but they are definitely destructible and you definitely will need to think about it at least a little bit. Lastly for this topic though, and this one I'll be quick on because it's obvious, is the focus mode. That is a huge new thing, not in World or Rise, allowing you to free aim all of your attacks. For some weapons, this is not amazingly relevant, like your bow or bow guns. They're already aiming like this anyway. But for your slower, heavy-hitting weapons like switch axe, or of course greatsword, hammer, being able to micro-adjust those attacks to prevent the attack from hitting the neck and actually hitting the head, as an example, that is a huge thing. For greatsword, it's even bigger because you can fully charge an attack and then even do a 180 spin using focus mode to accurately turn and hit the monster. Where before you're just kind of feeling out the direction and space of the attack, focus mode allows you to be way more specific. And this is still going to be relevant for weapons that are much quicker, that aren't going to benefit from it as much, like say dual blades. But as a tool, I think it's going to be a really helpful thing for new Monster Hunter players to learn the game and help them aim. And for advanced players, it's going to be more about making those micro adjustments to make sure that they hit the weak point and maximize DPS. Seeing it be used casually here and there, turned on and off, used right like that, I think is going to be very impactful. Beyond just the fact that focus mode opens up the whole wounds mechanic and the special focus mode attacks for breaking wounds and all the stuff that follows with that. Many weapons are going to want to hold their focus mode attacks and use them at specific times. Like longsword can upgrade its current spirit level by breaking a wound with a focus mode attack. If you break multiple wounds in one go, you'll level up multiple times. So for them, they'll want to open up a bunch of wounds and then not break them. They'll want to use a helm breaker to de-level and then use a focus mode attack to hit multiple wounds to re-level to do another helm breaker. In the case of dual blades for me, we're able to leap up in the air and do the kind of Levi spin. If that has iframes, which it seems like it does, I would probably hold my wound break focus mode attacks until I need to use it as an evasive tool. So it goes beyond just hit wounds that are open, opening up a new skill ceiling, which is always nice to have. But yeah, I think those are just some of the biggest changes that I've learned about and been discussing over the last few weeks. If there's anything you guys would add to these topics, or maybe a different topic that I didn't mention that is a big change from World and Rise, then let us know in the comments, why not? Expect more Wilds coverage in the coming days though, especially after the Tokyo Game Show. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.